is supposed to be a tribute, so to speak, honoring the lives lost in the flood that happened in town west of San Marcos, Texas on May 23rd, 2015. I still can't believe it's been 10 years since that. It's been half of my life. So I'll go through what I witnessed that day. Obviously, I wasn't up in San Marcos. I was down in Cibolo. So one of my grandparents had come down for just a visit, and she was there, seeing we actually got 2 tornado warnings on the TV. There was no message, nothing like that. It was just there was just a ticker that went across the screen, and then that was it. So, but, that alone was actually, the part that got me into weather somewhat. And then hearing about the events that went on later that night, the flash flood emergency, the dam failure, the dam break. So, yeah, it was pretty crazy stuff. There was a 40-foot wall of water that went down the San Marcos River as well as the Blanco River. So basically, all of the houses, even the ones on stilts, and a bunch of trees, they just went right down. They went right down in that flood. My mom, one of her friends, she works in San Marcos at the DA's office. One of her friends was in her house, and she had to go up into her attic to avoid the floodwaters. That is scary. Having to go into your attic, like, my goodness. I couldn't even imagine, and especially like, having to, rush and get over there. Like, it's crazy the power that water has. And, when, flash flood means that, just in a flash, you'll have water going through. Just like if you set up a fire sprinkler, it'll flood your room real quick, especially if there's a fire pump on that building. Pull in water to send it out even quicker to keep the pressure up. It's a lot like that. So when they say, turn around, don't drown, and don't drive into flooded areas, seriously, don't even walk into them. Culverts, streams, and low spots, they can become raging killer currents in a matter of just minutes, even from distant rainfall. So, like, if it says this is a dangerous and life-threatening situation, definitely take that seriously, Now, South Central Texas is not in Tornado Alley by any means, but it is considered to be Flood Alley, because the terrain is so hilly, and there are lots of residential areas within that terrain. At least it's not as bad as New Orleans. Like, who would have ever thought to build a town in an area that is 10 feet below sea level? Like, I will never understand that. And that's why Hurricane Katrina, the impacts of that one were so severe. That's why it was so bad. It's because that city is actually 10 feet below sea level. But yeah, one of my mom's friends, she lost all of her shoes when she had to go up into her attic to avoid the floodwaters. That's scary. Shoes are expensive. Shoes are really, really expensive. And if water comes in, takes all of them out of the house, and that's just insane. And then there was a family who was visiting from Corpus Christi, and man, this one, I hate this story. So this man, his wife, and his children, they were staying in one of those houses along the San Marcos River the night that the flood happened. And this dam failure resulted in a 40-foot wall of water traveling down this river. And like I said, it just knocked down houses, it knocked down trees. Some people even call it the 500-year flood because it took down trees that were 500 years old, which is just insane. So my EAS timeline is actually called the 500-year flood. If you go look that up, I put quite a bit of time into that one. I think it's a good watch. So if you want to go watch that, I'm not totally against it. I'd recommend it even. But this house that went into the river, went down the river, and it was going so fast, and then it collided with a bridge. The impact of that killed all but the father. And to this day, I've never heard of a more horrifying flood event than Wimberly 2015. And that wasn't the only one that happened that year. There was another one on October 24th, and then October 30th, 2015. You know, those were just a week apart, which was absolutely insane. And the reason that this got so bad was because we had a really wet spring, and because of that, the ground was really, really saturated. You know, I've looked at the hydrologic outlooks and, you know, short-term forecasts from around that time, which, why don't they do short-term forecasts anymore? You know, I wish they did that. Those were read on the weather radio by Donna, the female voice, as well as in my area, severe weather statements were also read by Donna. Flash flood watches were also read by her. But yeah, you know, like I remember taking a shower that night, and I was just like, man, there's people that are, you know, I was thinking like the tornadoes that happened in western Bexar County and central Comal County. I thought those were going to be the ones that took the lives. I wasn't even aware that there was a flood happening. So, you know, once I heard about that, that was scary. And there's a bridge going into San Marcos. I believe it is, it's not Walnut Avenue. I believe it is, well, actually, it's between Walnut and the I-35 business loop. There's a bridge, and you know, when my grandmother came down, the water was at its normal level. When she left the next day, she was going to stay the weekend with us. It was Memorial Day weekend, but she got so scared by that flood event that she decided to go back home. And the water was touching the bottom of that bridge that morning, which was absolutely insane. So, yeah. So, as of 10 years, or as of today, I have been very invested in weather for 10 years, which is insane, you know. It's a long time. That is a really long time. You know, and, you know, even though I've been around for 20 years, 10 years is still a lot. That's a long time out of your life to be devoted to something. You know, I'm always very vigilant now of the weather and what's going on around me. I've witnessed some significant events happen, like we had really massive hail in 2016 and again in 2021. the largest hailstone in state history. Um, I wasn't in Honda for that event, but I did, record the alert coming off of the radio for the storm that produced that stone, which was pretty insane. So these days I don't really record alerts anymore. I do have a weather radio tied up to my the fire alarm system in my shop, which is more of a mass notification system. I did that for fun. My dad actually texted me last night asking if that was hooked up to Wi-Fi because it was giving a weather report. I was like, no, it's hooked up to the that weather radio. And when it activates, that goes off. That was something that my friend Philip helped me do with Go PJ Life Safety. Check him out for sure. Speaking of him, I want to congratulate him on passing his first test to get his fire alarm license. Very, very good job. So, I feel like this is a great place to honor the events of 10 years ago. What better way than to spend it in Tornado Alley? No, that's mean. I'm not gonna say that. But what got me into weather was those tornado warnings, and that was when I really started getting into the EAS, and I was just like, why didn't it play a message? I feel like it should have. All it did was just this little ticker across the screen saying the counties that the tornado warning affected, and then the time that would be in effect until, and that was it. And I remember when I was real little, that would go up on the TV, I would hear it, and I would be like, oh, turn that off, and I feel like my dad would just leave it on just to annoy me. And I remember one time, we were driving home, like maybe a year or so before that, and the Amber Alert sound was going off on my dad's phone. I was just like, turn that off, and it just would not stop. I swear, it did it like 5 times, and each time I told him to stop, it was really, really annoying. So, yeah, I feel like he did do that to annoy me, and I made it clear I was annoyed, but, yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be annoying. It's supposed to get your attention because, what happened in Wimberly. Try to keep that from happening. So, like, if there's a flash flood warning, definitely heed the warning. Take it seriously, no matter where you are. Where I live now, we had a good rain the other week, and our front yard was flooded, our backyard was flooded, and our side yard was flooded. We've got a ditch on the side of our house, so we gotta monitor that. Exactly. Turn around, don't drown. I actually have a video the day that the BMH equipment went up. It was the last day of CRS at my National Weather Service office, where Tom said, turn around, don't down. I was just like, oh my gosh. That video is up on my channel. If you search up turn around, don't down, you will find it. So that is pretty funny. I remember that was back in 2016 when they implemented the new voice. Of course, I still miss the old ones. Crazy to think that was 9 years ago that we switched to the new voice. So, it's not really new anymore, but it's still new enough that, people talk about CRS still. And, it's just, nothing will ever replace it. It was named the Console Replacement System, and then I don't remember what BMH actually is. Let me look it up, just because I really want to know. BMH is, oh, come on now. the broadcast message handler. That's what BMH stands for, the console replacement system. So the Donna voice was this one right here.
This hazardous weather outlook is for central and southeast Kansas. Day 1, today and tonight. Some freezing temperatures are likely for southern Kansas eastward to the Flint Hills region late tonight. Widespread frost is also anticipated for southeast Kansas.
And then Imperfect Paul. This voice is very well known. You'll recognize this one for sure.
The slow-moving storm system will move across the northern Great Lakes region today and tonight. Snow associated with this system will continue across much of southwest lower Michigan this morning.
I actually have a video of when that voice decided to take over our station for a little bit. I don't know if it's up on either of my two old channels. I'll definitely link it if I do find it. Maybe it was a glitch that happened, but it was still really cool. And then Tom, of course.
Here is the forecast for the following counties. McKean.
Sorry about that, y'all. My phone died, and it's probably gonna die again. So, the new Paul voice. Y'all may have heard it. It's a very popular text-to-speech one.
Here is the forecast for the...
That's not it. It's this one.
The zone forecast for central and southeast Montgomery County for the rest of the overnight.
So yeah, that's it. That'll be it for this one. I'll talk to y'all real soon. And always remember those lost, and make sure you express to everyone around you that you care about, that you love them.